I came to the goddess path of yoga after becoming a mother. I was deeply, deeply entrenched in postpartum depression that was undiagnosed because I wasn't depressed and I didn't want to hurt myself or my baby, and I didn't have any of the boxes to check off on the ways that people measure these things. But I was full of rage, full of anger and resentment, loathing, completely victimized in my story of my birth. My birth was a traumatic one. I had planned a home birth. Look at me protecting myself as I tell this story. I had planned a home birth and learned late in my pregnancy that I had preeclampsia. And it got to the point where my midwife said, "You have to go to the hospital." And we waited as long as we could. And when my blood pressure reached a certain threshold, we went to the hospital. I delivered my baby through emergency cesarean section after 2 days of induced labor, 2 sleepless nights. And he had an easy birth, but I had a bleed that the doctor caused, nicking one of my abdominal muscles as they performed the cesarean. So I had internal bleeding. I had to go back in for a second procedure. The word exploratory was used. They didn't know what was wrong, but my abdomen was full of blood. And luckily, by the time they went in, my body had stopped the bleeding, and they made sure everything was okay and stitched me up. And I recovered from that with a week in the hospital, during which my blood pressure didn't come down at all, despite being on 2 different medications. As soon as I got home, my blood pressure dropped, and the cough that I developed in the hospital went away. My baby was fine. My baby is a thriving, wonderful little boy now. This is years ago. But the way that the birth unfolded for us it brought me to my knees. It was the most challenging, awful experience I've ever had. And there will be more bad days. I know, because I've cultivated an awareness that life is not always easy and there are bad days. But it was just sort of one thing after another, right? And my husband was there with me. He was as angry and lost as I was. And it was just the opposite of everything that we had wanted. So that's what I was coming off of. I went home and I had a baby to take care of. And I didn't know what to do. I felt like I was feeling all the wrong things, but part of me knew that it was appropriate for me to feel that way. And I didn't have a good way of working with those emotions. They were tidal waves of emotions. I would sob and scream. My baby didn't sleep at all either. He didn't sleep for several years. So I was deeply sleep deprived on top of that birth experience and losing 3 liters of blood. So when there was an opportunity to study with the goddess Tara, I thought, okay, I can do that. I can sign up for this. I was with a woman who I had followed for years, and Tara came into my life and she held me. Tara is a Buddhist goddess, she is the navigator. Her name means star. So she's a pinpoint of light that we can watch, and she guides us. And in the practices, which I didn't even do all of, I made it very small, my sadhana and my commitment. But in my practices with Tara, I was returned to myself in a very real way. And as I practiced with Tara, my training in embodied yoga kicked in. And I remembered that I had choice, and I remembered that I had agency, and I remembered that I could use the attention that's always there. It's not hard to pay attention. For a while, I felt so depleted that I couldn't pay attention. But then I remembered that paying attention is the ego. There's part of our consciousness that is just holding us. There's no effort in it. And it's always there. So by necessity, I started cultivating my relationship with that because my ego had nothing left, right? I was running on empty for months and months. And as I practiced things like yoga nidra and breathing practices and began to inquire how my organs were different and how my scars were being formed, how my body was producing milk, how my body had changed radically again, right? The journey of pregnancy through birth and then the recovery from that is just so much transition and transformation. And we have so much pressure around it in the West that we should just get back to normal, right? It took me years. I'm still finding normal. And these two paths of embodiment, embodied yoga, and the goddess mythology, they rewove me back into a richer, more established version of myself. So I'm not better, because I don't really believe in that. But I have gained a lot of perspective and a lot of empathy and a lot of awareness from this process. And that's the foundation of the embodied myth. We take practices that will lead us in, and these goddesses who are always loving us in, and we come to the meeting place where we recognize that it's the same. So if you are here for some healing, or if you know a woman who needs this, please, please go to the offerings page. I've made everything just for you. These are the tools that I've used, that I've given to countless life coaching clients, to chiropractic patients, to friends. These are the tools that everyone needs because they're bringing you right back into yourself, and you will be okay.